So, I guess you're taking over the,
I am tonight, yes.
okay, call the roll please then.
Kinsey,
Here.
Klein,
Here.
Mossberg,
Here.
Parker, Lawson.
Here. We have a quorum, so we'll continue on. Go to the next item, which is number 3, approval of minutes of regular meeting held November 8th, 2021.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from November 8th, 2021. Second.
We have a motion and a second, call the roll please.
Mossberg,
Yes.
Klein,
Yes.
Logston,
Yes.
Kinsey.
Yep.
You're experienced doing this for previous years.
I do. I do a
It
little
just
bit
kind
of
of dawned
everything.
on me.
She seemed natural at it.
Yeah,
right.
that's what.
Like I've done this before.
Everything's flowing smoothly.
Okay, we'll go on to the next item. Number 4, reports from the staff. There's some attachments there, and the first report will be given by City Council report.
I wanted to start just with a small piece on the financial statement. Caleb had mentioned after the last board meeting, looking at the fuel sales, they didn't really correspond with what our fuel sales numbers look like in our reporting. We determined that, and Derek and I discussed this, when we changed credit card vendors, they've not been depositing that money into our account. It's just been sitting within. So we've got all the paperwork filled out, submitted, and so we should see the credit card deposits. They'll obviously get those caught up, and then we'll get those adjustments made. And then once all of that's in there, we'll get again and verify that the sales are relatively, correspond with the sales that we have recorded that they're keep track of. So I just wanted to point that out. We had it's been 2 weeks ago, we had a huge water main break. The line that supplies water from us to Capron, to that rural water district, had a leak in it, and we had some major line repairs that took 3 to 4 days to get completed. We had to have an emergency meeting and have some additional expenses there to get that water service restored. It was a pretty major undertaking for our water department, and then followed that up on the last day with a water line break over on Noble Street also. So it was kind of a crazy, that week was a long and crazy week, but that's taken care of now. We are expecting our audit for the fiscal 19-20 year will be on the City Council agenda for next Monday. So we're essentially about a year behind. As you'll recall, we had my first year as city manager, when I was interim city manager. We also had a petition audit that took away from the work to prepare for our regular audit, and so those two things combined were a little bit behind. And so that's should be finalized and accepted at the City Council meeting on Monday, and then we are already in the process of working on the fiscal year 2021 audit as well. So our accountants have been on site once, and we're working with our auditors to move on that as well. So hopefully that one won't be as far behind. And the petition audit, I did hear from State Auditor and Inspector's Office this last week. It's on into the review phase, basically. They completed the work and it had just kind of been sitting and waiting for reviews. Now it's being reviewed, and so we likely should hear more on that as well. So I won't take away Derek's thunder on the CAA visit. I know he has it on his report, so I'll let him talk about that.
You wrote it stuff down. I did not.
Well, it was just really good. The CEO for CAA, him and his wife flew in. They surveyed the premises, talked to us, asked us some questions about what things we have on site here. Kind of asked us questions about, have we seen an uptick in fuel sales, which we have. Really, mostly just some questions about how we do things here, and wanting to know if when someone says they're a CAA member, are we verifying their membership, which Derek has been. all the things that they asked we were doing, and they were excited to have us on board and excited to hear that we've had an uptick in sales as well. So one of the things that they recommended to us was, if you can have quick turns, which that's been the thing that they've heard is good for us. And then they said, the airports that have food on site, restaurants of some sorts, so I know later on we're talking about, what our future needs are. That's something that they said, if you can have a good place to eat, quick turnarounds, people will stop at your airport. So I think everything went well, and I was really pleased to have that conversation and have their input as well. So, are there any questions I can answer?
I drove downtown and saw Christmas lights around the town square. At one time, we haven't had Christmas lights in several years, so
The street guys,
especially not across the streets.
yeah, the street lights, the street department has worked really hard on that. We're a little bit behind where we wanted to be, but they also helped on the water line break too, but they look great, right?
Yeah, but
How far south in 21 you gonna come?
Say that again.
I'm just kidding.
How far south? Well, that's
Yeah.
probably as far south as we're going.
yeah, years and years ago, they used to line the boulevard
Really?
with Christmas lights too. We had, the big water tower on the top of the hill was dressed up like a bell. And
We've talked about that. I know, in talking with Jody at the Chamber of Commerce, we'd like to see trying to figure out what that looks like for next year. But
So did the city have the money in the budget to handle the water situation, stress in the city?
it was not necessarily in the budget, but we did have the cash flow for it. We'll monitor that water department budget as it moves forward. But yes, our cash position has changed drastically. We have over citywide, not including the transfer that we made to the airport checking account, but it would include the pooled cash from the airport, the amount that's still there. We have over $2 million in the checking account, which is a drastic turn from where we started just about 2 years ago. So we are making progress. We're putting money back in savings and trying to just do things a little bit differently than what we've done in the past. And it really shows.
So these breaks are probably due to aging infrastructure. I'm assuming the city's looking at future plans to rectify some of that.
We are. We have a water superintendent that's worked for our community for over 40 years, and so we're trying to determine, have a plan in place for, when he does retire, what that succession looks like, and he's got a lot of history, just that he has and his knowledge that we're trying to get on paper. With the ARPA funding, there's a lot of money out there for infrastructure and water infrastructure specifically, so we are looking at what we can do to maximize the ARPA funds that we have received, and what those projects look like. We've met with a group for 4 counties, trying to see if there's some additional grant applications and things that we can put together to once again maximize the ARPA funds that we are getting. Most of our infrastructure is 80+ years old, and part of what we are trying to do by getting our resources built back up is also set aside money for capital improvement. We have ordinances and everything in place to support that. We've just never funded those things. So I know from a finance committee perspective, once we have the airport paid back, our plan is to continue to set those monies aside so that we can fund those capital improvements, and instead of having to wait until things happen, try to be a little bit more preemptive instead of responding. It'll be a long time before we have everything in place. We've got a lot of infrastructure that's extremely old, and so we'll likely be a little bit behind the game always, but working to put better plans in place so that we can not react and try to do things more preemptive. Does that answer your question?
Yep.
Sales tax looks like it's been doing well.
It's been holding steady. I have to look at it again this month. It's been right on track as far as where we anticipated it being in our budget. It did some hits and surges, I guess would be the right way to say that, but we are just right on track from where we thought we were.
Well, it looked like we had a big inflow from this last weekend. State football game in town. It was big, so
We can,
it's good to see.
they are good to see those things and have to continue. I know we've got the Christmas light cruise, I think is this Saturday. So hopefully that'll bring some more people in town as well, so.
Anything else for the city manager? If not, we'll go on to the next item, which is from the airport manager.
He mentioned something, so I need to write something down for you.
Okay.
All right, our fuel sales, to me, seem kind of down, but I mean, compared to previous months, it was still up. But from the past couple of months, it wasn't what what I was expecting with the holidays and everything, but with everything kind of taken into consideration with the runway lines construction, it was still $22,355.80, so technically that was still a pretty good month, but I just think it could have been a lot more, because I do know we missed several jets coming in because they wanted to land a little bit after 5, which they've been kind of hit or miss whether they could have gone in and out before it got dark. One was they were going to take on fuel, they were going to come watch one of the state football games, but they couldn't, he was going to get a car. But had he landed probably at light, when it was light, he probably could have taken off when it was dark, but he didn't want to chance it, so. But like I said, we've kind of got, we got options to kind of go over later, so. Some of the stuff I was going to talk about was the runway lines, but that's on the agenda, so we'll save that for later. The AWAS is working properly now. We found that, LMP came down, put in the blower motor assembly, so the cylinder is working, so we're really kind of just waiting for the inspector to come and clear it so we can take that off the motor. And the apron expansion is complete. They removed the barriers last Monday. And they replaced 15 panels. They were allowed 120 calendar days. They got it done in half the time, so they saved money to where they could replace. Well, they saved money by completing early, plus the edge drain that they were able to bypass. So they were able to replace 15 panels instead of 9. They took that drain out in the concrete, so it's all supposed to just flow down into that. I need to get, when I get the dozer blade put on, I'll push that grass over it so it can go ahead and drain on down into that ditch.
The 15 panels is what we had originally planned for, but when the quotes came in, the bids came in, we reduced the amount of panels that we replaced, so this allowed us to do everything that we had originally planned, which was nice.
Yeah, I think when it was supposed to have started, when it was supposed to start, and then to when it did start, the prices just kind of went up on everything. So, which I think that allowed money into the next project too, didn't it? I'm not going to say that, so I thought maybe, but so that's complete. We had the CJ4. They parked on the new apron, and they said it's gonna make a lot of pilots of those jets happy, because it's just gonna make it a lot easier for them to park and exit rather than having to park over here. And then if you get some lined up, you know, they got turned on a dime, it's just harder for them to go, so now they just park and go, so he said that's gonna make a lot of people happy. And besides the fact that it looks really good, we got a lot of compliments on it. So. On the, well, add on to the meeting with the CAA, that we've, not only were they happy, they were happy that we were seeing an uptick in traffic, but for the fact that we've had actual planes coming in before we were actually members, and saying that was part of the factoring in on a lot of the boats that they were already coming before we were members, but also as long as we can kind of keep our low prices. But they did suggest that we advertise a ramp fee, but we waive it with a fuel purchase. Mainly so, I can't remember exactly.
More of an incentive for people to
Right.
buy fuel from us when they stop, that they're not just stopping, using our facilities and then leaving, that even if they're just topping off their tanks, it allows them to pay for using our facilities essentially.
Do they have a suggestion on value on that?
They didn't really say.
I mean, they gave us, and I don't have it in my notes, they gave us a couple of airports to use as examples where we could go and pull their fees, and we can present those at the next meeting.
Yeah, but it was, stuff kind of with that. As long as we just kind of put that stuff out, if we get our GPU, if we put, just got stuff out there that the charge would be waived with the fuel. That way they don't, of course, I don't see, most of our fuel sales from CAA is cross-country fuel stops, quick turns anyways, because nobody really comes from California and stops here to go, you know.
They just make it a blanket policy for whoever comes in.
Right.
That
Yeah.
can help you out in other areas as well.
Yeah, but, so I mean, technically, most of our fuel sales from CAA has been quick turns anyway, so that's what we told them, that's kind of our specialty is quick turns. We can get them in and out 30 minutes with us, even quicker if they, a lot of reasons why they stay really is because they're looking at this stuff, you know, our museum.
The other fee they suggested was if it's an after hours where Derek's coming in from home, they recommended that they charge a fee for that as well, if it's not during normal business hours. But then, once again, that would be subject to be waived if you wanted to. So just some things, really just more suggestions on how to help us.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Ramp fee has some negatives, because I mean, if you have somebody flying from Oklahoma City that wants to do something with college or whatever, they don't need people. They just come up, anything, or some other business, whatever. A little bit discouraging to them. If they're on the fence whether to drive or not, ramp fee, that may just, but we're here to promote traffic and business, and now if there's anything at all that deters that, I would be against. So,
But do we get a lot of traffic that comes in and just lands without buying fuel?
We do.
I mean, they make up for the business they do.
Right.
They
Right. We have a few
So,
that come, and it's not really jets, and they're not really, like I said, they're not CAA either, but they'll come and they'll sit on the ramp, they'll take, then they'll go, but it's kind of far and few between. A lot of it's like 182s and Piper Arrows and stuff that are coming in for that, but it's, it used to be the heart doctors that came in, but they're taking on fuel now, they're CAA, so they're taking on
there's people applying from other communities to, go over to John Deere to get equipment or borrow, one of the courtesy cars, go to Walmart, just do some shopping or something. You know, I think that a lot of that's made up, compensated for by other business that they do in town, so. Like I say,
Yeah, it was just kind of a suggestion. We just thought.
Yeah.
Appreciate your help, but I agree.
Yeah, they've got a lot of experience in their, with all this, and they're trying to gather a little more information to make it even better, so, it's kind of, they said, it normally takes 6 months for it to really kick off, so, we're only in the third month, so, I mean, 3 months down the road, we might be averaging 25, 30,000 a month. I don't know. Jinx. Yeah. So, that's pretty much kind of all I have on mine, so.
Would there be a way to get the sweeper truck to come out and do a couple passes on the new ramp, or were they able to? I mean, the last time I looked, there was still a lot of rock, small rock.
Yeah, I kind of noticed that too. I thought maybe when they came down, we could maybe try to talk them into sweeping that up a little bit better. I went out there today because I saw some wet spots, but it was just a condensation from the CJ4 and then dumping out there cooler. But I did pick up a couple more of those wire
things.
Yeah, so we've had enough traffic kind of on there. It's kind of blown some of that dust and stuff off it. But it'd be nice to get a good rain to kind of wash it up.
Prop can't take any more rocks.
Yeah.
I can talk to our street superintendent and see if they can come out. I don't know if it is the same quality or not.
They've kind of got the same, they kind of have the same attachment to their Bobcat as kind of we have to ours. So,
We'll look into it again.
anything else for Derek? If not, we'll go on to the next item, number 5, discussion and action on runway light repairs.
So, obviously, we're still working on the runway lights, I think, and they're, correct me if I'm wrong, we have 2/3 of the lights work. But because it's all on circuit, obviously we can't leave that on. We've had some issues. We've had, I think, 3 fixed wing medical lights that could not come in when we needed them because the runway lights are not working. And so, Williams Electric has come out and they've done as much as they can. We requested the plans, the engineering plans from Myers. What they sent to us was maybe what the original plans intended, but maybe they weren't as-built because those have been moved off-site. And so we're trying to just, I have talked to Bill again today. I left him a message. We played phone tag, but hopefully going to try to see if we can get the as-built specs as well. But as it currently sits, there's just a lot of unknown variables when they're trying to find and I'm going to talk like I maybe know what I'm talking about, and I really, just using Toby's lingo that he's giving me, we may not be able to find the short in the circuit with just out a lot of trial and error. We talked, and I think Derek, did you give a copy of this to everybody? So we talked to Toby today about some options that we have to get the lights restored more quickly. This outboard displays threshold would give us approximately 3,900 feet of lighted runway. We have to bore under the runway, and I don't really know anything about electrical work, so I apologize. But basically, create a jumper across the runway and connect that circuit, so all those lights would be able to work, and then we wouldn't have to worry about, we would still continue to work on fixing the problem, but it would be a short-term solution to give us runway lights for that 3,900 feet of the runway.
That threshold would only be at night, and it technically be from Bravo 3, no, south.
I just received the contact information earlier this evening for Metaflight contact, because if we were going to spend that money, I would want to make sure that that would allow them to come in at 3,900 feet would be enough, would meet their specifications and allow them to land here. So I don't have that information yet, but I have the contact information now, so we'll give them a call in the morning and see if that would be a benefit to them, if that would allow them to land. Option 2 is basically sounds like what Williams Electric has been doing. They are basically going through a segment of electrical line at a time and trying to find where the short is in the circuit. Obviously, that's, I think Toby quoted, and he didn't put it in his email because he probably didn't look, he knows that rate can change, but anywhere between $6 to $7 a foot to do those pieces of what is it called?
Yeah.
Like replacement until we find the short circuit essentially. And then on our call we had talked about some meter testing, which I'm not sure exactly what that is, trying to identify the shortness in the circuit, but it sounds like that's essentially what Williams was doing when they were here, and they weren't making any additional progress. I know, Adele, Mayor Parker had talked to you about the potential of putting a light on either end of the runway to help eliminate that. I need to find out from Metaflight if that's a viable option for them, if that's going to gain us the ability to have them land here as well. Ultimately, these options that are outlined here do not fix the taxiway lights. We'd still be without taxiway lights until we were able to figure out all of that. I don't have a whole lot more information than I really feel like what we had last time. I'd like to contact Metaflight in the morning and find out if either of the options of putting the light on either end of the runway or doing the threshold, the temporary threshold, would allow them to land or not. I know long term we have to get the lights fixed, and we want them to be fixed, but we're also, I know from the hospital's perspective, not being able to have a fixed wing flight land here is pretty critical for our community. And so, I don't know what your thoughts are. I'm kind of rambling, but I don't know if I'll be able to answer a lot of questions, but I'd be open to questions.
On the lights on the end, they said it'd probably be feasible for regular aircraft, any personal jet or whatever that comes through, but the regulations for Metaflight and everything is a little different, so that might not be feasible for them. So,
Dale, I think Kelly mentioned that you maybe have some lights that we could use to do that with.
Just battery operated lights that flash.
Okay.
It was just going to be a temporary,
Right.
just, in case, I didn't know what the degree of the emergency was, but I could have put a white flashing light at one end of the runway and a red one at the other. That way they could line up to it and use their lights on the airplane to illuminate the runway. The stripes on the runway are reflective, so once you get within, a certain distance, you can see the stripe.
And I will, but in that call, I'll find out if we can do that. We'll get that done.
Yeah.
Quickly. But I think the biggest issue in talking with Toby is that Williams Electric, they were able to spend some time here, but it's going to take some time. I know we talked about in the last meeting, using Derek and I's judgment to get those fixed. We're really at this point in time waiting for them to come back. They were waiting on those plans from Myers, but I still think it sounds, in talking to Toby, it sounds like we're still kind of just going to be trying to locate where that short is at. They have some thought processes that it's probably where the Pappies and the runway lights, where those are joined at,
Yeah,
but they're not
on the-
100% for sure on that.
Yeah, on the 1/8 Pappies where it crosses over and then through the runway to those lights, they said it might be a circuit there. Sends out the, I mean, that's what, with the Pappy regulator being fried, so that might be. So if they did, option number one, they might just, if we get lucky, they just have to go that far from Bravo 3 up to the Pappies, and that might stop, that might solve the problem, or they might have to go all the way around, which that was worst case scenario. So.
And I did file a claim with insurance. So with holidays, it kind of slows everything down. They've asked me a lot of preliminary questions, and I'm awaiting someone to come on site and look at things. So I don't have any additional information on that piece yet either. And so if we want to, wait and see what that comes back with, we can do that as well.
There was a lighting plan on the original drawing, the blueprint package for the new runway out there.
For the new runway,
Yeah,
there was one on that?
yes, there is.
Who was that with?
Well, there used to be a copy out here.
Well,
That
we've got,
was Martin here.
That was
Myers
Myers.
Engineering.
yeah, and we've got that blueprint that shows the intent of where the lines are, but we don't have the as-built.
But that shows
And,
they're a complete loop.
yeah, and Williams has went off of that, but they're thinking that, as with all projects, engineering plans sometimes have to be finagled to where, just because it says it's there, it might not be there. So that's why they have the as-builts, and technically there probably should have been, and they probably got it somewhere, but somewhere there's a field change that should have been initialed off and signed off by the engineer plus everybody else that would say, hey, this is what it was supposed to be, but this didn't work that way, so this is how it is, and this is where it's at. So that's the as-builts, and I just, they're archives.
What Myers told us is their archive, so my call into Bill is to see if we can get, if we can get those.
Have you guys looked through your back room for those changes? They disappeared?
They're not,
They existed at one time.
and I'm sure that they are somewhere. There's not a lot of rhyme or reason in the filing system for those. So we can continue to look for those as well, and I, like I said, I have a call to Myers to try to get their version pulled out of the archives as well. And we can continue, I mean, I just don't know how soon that's going to be, especially with the holidays. We've expressed the importance, when I talked to Bill last week, expressed the importance and why we are requesting those because of the issue with the medical flights not being able to land after dark. We're relying on someone else to go pull that information for us, so.
I gotta look, I guess the ovals are out, the package are out, everything.
Yeah. That's all hooked together.
It's all one
And it looks like, just if I was randomly going out there checking, I would check the last system that was attached to the runway lights, which is the oldest. And then I would go to the Bassett's to check, because it worked for years, and then all of a sudden, usually when there's a change or maintenance done on it, that's lots of times where the problem is located. But they're on top of it, I'm sure. So. But
Well, and there's also been conversation on, do we want to move forward with Williams, or do we, we're at their timetable and their work. They came here, pulled off of another project because they were already coming to work on our project here, and so it may be a minute before they can get back out.
So when do they plan to come?
Yes, undetermined also, because that's kind of one of the things is also, I mean, if we continue with Williams, because, and Toby said, yeah, it's nothing against Williams, it's just that they're very busy right at the moment, so Libra Electric is the one who did that work, so they might know, so if they have time, it might be more valuable to have their traffic.
there's a connection of some kind underneath every runway light where it could be disconnected and isolated. So it seems like you could go out and isolate sections,
And that is
which is what they're
That's probably what would have been the smart thing, but there's really no junctions. I mean, none of that was put in conduit, it was direct grid, there's no junction boxes, so there's really no good spot to really check. And that's what the issue is just, it was just kind of thrown down and done.
But I do think that's what Toby is suggesting.
Yeah.
Suggesting an option two is that we replace a segment at a time
Yeah.
until we find that.
He said it would be,
Disconnected, isolated, and then,
yeah, they wouldn't,
shorties.
it would be a strategic plan is what they were saying. It wouldn't be just going down and replacing, it'd be it'd be checking 100 foot at a time. And just kind of go. But I kind of get what you're saying on the Odos, it was the last thing, and now I have, maybe when they spliced in.
Yeah, and lots of other maintenance items, that's where you look at first is what did you mess with last?
Yeah,
And then that screwed up whatever's working.
yeah.
So am I hearing that, I mean, just based on Dale's piece of the conversation, is that what the path we would like to continue having them come and work down that? It's,
We have to.
But if we reach out to the other company to come and take a look, I mean, I'd much rather have them come take a look. It looks like it's gonna take us 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, when I come back to not having an airplane plane, me don't come in here. I mean, for us to go spend $3,500 to get something hooked up to where we can get a med flight in.
Yeah. And
Like,
like,
I'd hate to not have something, we have somebody who needs it.
Yeah.
That's,
And I'm not opposed to changing companies, If Libra can get right on it and do it, I think it's well worth it to like that.
they might have, and they might be able to check their archives or whatever, to go back, it's been what, a decade? When was that done?
2008.
The initial drawing was around 2008, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, they might have those that they review.
Those change orders exist down at City Hall, because I've seen them.
I'm sure that they are there, Paul, and we've looked through minutes, but that wouldn't necessarily have, the minutes may have the approval of the change orders, but they don't necessarily have the change orders attached to them. So we'll continue to do some research there and see what we can find. And then maybe call Libra and see if, I mean, that's what I'm hearing is work on that path and see what they can,
Yeah, the quicker we can get them back up and operating, the better.
do we want to put like a time frame to it? I mean, if they can get here in a month or something like that, I mean,
Well,
I mean, it's kind of hard.
Holidays, it's gonna be hard.
Yeah, in my opinion, a month is too long.
Yeah, I agree.
In my opinion, they've been off way too long now.
Yeah, they've been off, I think we've looked since October 22nd is when.
We're saying we're a jet-capable airport and if somebody's flying cross-country, I know they're supposed to look at NOTAMs and things like that, whether it's a cross-country flight or a medical flight in to save somebody's life, airplane them out of the hospital, I mean,
is there a temporary lighting solution that, like, that just stick out there while you're troubleshooting another system? Sell stuff like that, or rent it, or lease it?
yeah, this time of year, you can run a cable above ground as a temporary to,
Well, I don't know if we could put one over the runway, it'd have to be behind, well, they
You
were
mean
talking.
how long?
yeah, but you already have power to the west side of the runway.
Yeah. They were talking, that's where the threshold would come in, and they could probably extend it another 100 foot, maybe, but it'd be on the north side of Bravo 3, and they'd have to land, on the south side, or they could go past that. But that was where the boring was coming in. That would be the cheapest and probably quickest way would be the threshold.
It would get us lights the quickest.
Yeah, lights the quickest.
Essentially. But it wouldn't necessarily fix the entire problem. We would still have to look through those plans.
I guess I don't understand why you need to go.
Because-
you've got power to the west side of it.
To go over the.
So what they're saying is they know that there's continuity in wherever,
Yeah, the west side. Wait.
no, we're talking on the south
Oh,
side,
south
all
side.
like from the south side of the right of way.
Right.
That there's continuity there, they know it's there, and so what they're saying is that you basically connect the 2 points where you know that you connect the 2 points where you know that there is a continuity in the circuit. And so you would drill under the runway and connect those 2 pieces on either side of the runway, and it would allow for you to light everything from this point, and I don't know.
That 3,900 feet.
3,900 feet, it would allow you to connect all that and light that up, basically. And then, as time, money, however allows, you would work this north side of the runway to try to isolate the
So
problem.
they do not have power on the west side of it.
They've got power, but it's all shorted out, so, and that's why they shut everything off, because every time somebody gives you a chance,
Then it would fry the
they'll
rest of
fry
the
it
system.
more than just extend the problem.
You can see on the west side of the runway, if the power's run over there, there's no taxiways to board.
Well, and I may have misspoke, I may have said the wrong thing. So they'd be boring under the runway itself to connect the 2 pieces on either side of the runway. I apologize if I said it
To
wrong.
complete the circuit that way. And I know you probably think going over the,
Yeah, well, we're discussing things that neither one of us know.
We know
Exactly what we're talking
just a
about,
little
so
bit. I
We
mean,
leave it up to them to.
so am I hearing that that would be something that we would be interested in doing to get those up more quickly?
I'd be the opinion that we need to get whatever lights we have working, and then have somebody hopping on there and try to get the balance of them working.
And then finishing.
There was,
Right? 'Cause I remember as a kid, a couple of times, the runway light's not working out here, and we'd be out here working late, we'd hear the plane out buzz around above, trying to figure out where the airport was, and we literally took cars out there and parked them on the other runway with the headlights on bright, so they could see them come in and land.
and there continues to be people fly in here and land at night
yeah,
without runway lights. You know,
yeah.
and any help we can give them whatsoever would be, I'm sure they appreciate.
Well, then we can definitely move forward on that path of putting that temporary threshold in there. I know that we can move forward with that, and that's within both Derek and I's purview to go.
I mean, originally, the runway was 2,400 feet. I think originally, when the airport was built in 47, I think it was 2,400 feet. And so most of your airplanes, that 3,900 feet, they're gonna be able to
Should be
get down.
sufficient.
Right. Well, I was thinking, the old runway, the asphalt was 4,000, right?
Well, it's been expanded for
Well, I
many
know,
years.
but the past one was 4,000, and those King Airs were landing out there
Yes.
anyways. So,
4,400.
yeah.
Okay.
So I was thinking, 4,000.
All right, well, we definitely can move down that path and then continue to ask Myers if they can find the as-builts. We'll look for our change orders.
Because even the big planes, if they're in trouble, I mean, a 3,900 feet's gonna get them pretty well lined up and oriented.
Okay. Well, we'll walk down that path and then also see who we can get here more quickly, whether it be Williams or Libra, to continue on the north side.
But I would look through your city inspector office, I would look everywhere, and they weren't big, they were about the size of this, the ones I saw.
So just like a sheet of paper.
Yep, with the change orders,
Okay.
there was a stack of them.
Well, I will go through then and see. We may, if you know any college students that need something to do, we could have them go through and look through plans, because we have a substantial amount of plans to look through to try to find it, which we have looked, but I know a lot of those were kept out here, and we weren't able to find them here either. So we'll see what we can find and continue to look, but I think if we can move forward and try to get something established, that would be great. And I don't know that we necessarily need any action. It falls, in my opinion, it falls under the action we took at the last meeting. I just wanted it on there in case we needed to do something with those.
Okay.
So you have your direction now?
Yes. Thank you.
We haven't confused you too much.
Well, I feel like it's kind of a blind lead the blind on that one.
Let's have
I'll stand on top of my house and see.
There you go. You and Kelly, we can give some correction.
Well, if we have nothing on that, we're going on to item 6, discussion and action to establish a committee to review future airport needs.
I had suggested that to you put on the agenda to Angelica. I think that with the potential changes, with the, I'm going to say the big ring top, that's what it's called, the future arena that's might be built and stuff, and potentially the fairgrounds being returned to us, and then expanding the ramp and the increase in jet traffic and stuff, that we should have a committee. In my opinion, it's just a couple of board members, the airport manager and the city manager, sit down, kind of evaluate where we're at, where we want to go, and interact with the board. Maybe even hold a public forum thing out here to get input from local pilots and stuff, of what they might see as future needs, and see how we can continue to develop the airport in a positive manner, particularly to create alternate streams of revenue. Because right now, when you have income from minerals that can run out at any moment, we need, in my opinion, we need to be looking at alternatives to kind of replace that. So that was my intent with this. And I'd be happy to serve on that. I don't have to be.
Okay, so we've got Paul serving on it. The other members would like to help with that.
I don't mind. I don't know.
Okay.
Discussion about things that we can do. I know a lot of stuff tied in with the university, and like I said, the arena, and a lot of things going on. Yeah.
Okay. We need a motion for that.
What a motion. We establish, committee to review future airport needs.
Okay.
I'll say.
We got a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Kinsey,
Yes.
Mossberg,
Yes.
Logston,
Yes.
Klein.
Yes.
Okay, we go on to the next item, remarks and inquiries by airport commission. Anything else we need to discuss? Anybody have questions, comments?
I visited Gary a little bit this morning, mentioned to him, I noticed that one of the owners of the building on the airport did some beauty enhancement, I guess you could call it, and preservation to the thing, and suggested that Gary maybe contact that person and look at ways that maybe like our A barn could probably use some enhancement. I know that I think there's some leaks in it, but the roof's pretty rusty on it. Maybe we could do some things there to help improve, because it was amazing, because it draws my attention. It's so bright, with what they did. But I think that would be a way to help preserve some of the existing structures that we've got.
Okay. We get a price idea for us, so we can
Yeah,
discuss it sometime.
yeah, I know what it costs for him, for that hangar to be painted. So I guess maybe, I got that card from the company that did it, so.
Okay.
It's like a membrane or something.
Yeah, it's a sealant paint.
Okay.
Yeah, type of deal. I mean, it's the same people that got that painted with their sanction too.
Okay.
Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Anything else from the airport commission members? If not, we'll go on to the next item, remarks and inquiries by citizens.
I have one other item I forgot that I probably should have covered in the city council report. So ODOT in their 8-year plan is to repave Highway 281 from college, from basically where the college is all the way up here to just about the big sign out front. They are wanting to purchase the easement on either side, so obviously that's some of the airport property there. So I met with the evaluation company, and then we'll get an offer from them as well, not from a different company, they'll send us an offer. But what they are planning is on either side of the highway, we'll have sidewalks basically from that point all the way to, I think Caleb would be excited to hear that, all the way to college essentially. And then, we have one of our tenants has a sign that is in that easement, so they'll work directly with that tenant to move that sign back out of the easement and pay for damages on that, so it can be moved as well. Shouldn't be disruptive. All of the drives will continue to be open through the project. They talked about the fact they'd be looking at beginning to move utilities in 2022, and the actual project would start likely in 2026. Now, we always know that's always subject to change, but that's as it sits right now. So, as I get more information on that, I'll bring it back to you guys.
Did they talk anything about drainage?
They did talk about a little bit of drainage work. Not person that I was talking with, she didn't have all the specifics on that, but there is some. I mean, I have the plans in my office. I can bring them to the next meeting, Dale, and if you guys want to look at them. But the sidewalks and there is some drainage changes there, but nothing too major. But it's supposed to help everything drain just a little
Or
bit.
significant amount of water that drains
Stands
down
right there.
this side of the highway.
I can bring those plans next, if you'll, Derek, if you remind me, I'll bring them to the next meeting and you can look at it and see.
They would have to do, if they're gonna put a sidewalk all the way to out here to the entrance airport. The two roads, they may have to do some adjustment to get in the drainage of the sidewalk,
Gotcha, I see what you're saying.
so.
Made my day by telling me that.
I know, made my day, we should tell them they were gonna put them in, so.
Oh, yeah, the sidewalk's great.
I know.
We've got a stretch right there on the east side of the highway it's been trampled down because there's people walking.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
you-
you have to come into work, I drive out this way every day to work, and certain times of year they have people running that, on the jogging trail, or their jogging route. No lights, wearing black clothing, and,
Well, we've had some folks that are living in income-based
Yep.
apartments that have handicaps and being able to maneuver and walk around. Something needs to be done there. And I think it's a great option to have.
Yeah.
So.
yeah. Okay, anything else from citizens? If not, we'll adjourn.